and welcome to the 2019 Teach English Now virtual conference. My name is Jessica Cinco, one of your course instructors from Teach English Now, and I'm from Arizona State University. We welcome all of you, both the people that we've met before and the ones that we haven't met. We're so glad each and every one of you are here. Today, my keynote presentation is titled Vulnerable Teachers, Fostering Brighter Futures for Students. So before I dive into my presentation, I want to introduce you to one of my personal heroes. Do you know her? This is Dr. Brene Brown. She is a shame and vulnerability researcher. She has discovered some really powerful things. She's written 5 best-selling books. She is a renowned speaker. She has the 5th or 4th most watched TED Talk ever, called The Power of Vulnerability. She just released a Netflix special about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Give it a watch if you haven't already. And she's also a research professor at the University of Houston in Texas. So her work on shame and vulnerability has been on my radar for about 3 years. And I started just working through some of her, or putting into practice some of her research findings into my own personal life. Well, as anything that starts in our own personal life tends to spill over into our professional life. And before I knew it, I was integrating a lot of her research findings into my own classroom. And it's been really powerful. So, I want to start by telling you 2 stories. The first story happened when I was a 6th grader. Like any 6th grade kid, I loved being outside, I was adventurous, and one of my favorite activities was horseback riding. So one weekend, my family and I went horseback riding. The horse jumped over a puddle of water, and in the process, I fell off the horse. I hit face first on the ground. I busted my lip and my chin, and ended up in the hospital getting 11 stitches. It was pretty painful, both physically and emotionally. Do you remember when you were a 6th grader? Everything was embarrassing for you, or at least for me. So I was in pain physically, but also because I had this big, swollen, crusty, bloody lip and this funky chin, I was also mortified because I felt like everybody was looking at me. So Monday I go into school. At the end of the day, my teacher says in front of all the other students, "Geez, Jessica, if you smiled anymore, your face would crack." I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember my vision narrowed. Time seemed to stand still. My brain went totally blank. I couldn't think. My face flushed bright red. Started to get a little sweaty under my arms. Felt a pit in my stomach and racing heart. I felt like everybody was looking at me and judging me. It was hard for a 6th grader. Okay, now I want to fast forward to when I was a high school student. My 16th birthday. 16th birthdays in America mean you can take the driving test. So I had studied all week for my driving test, and unfortunately my schoolwork kind of slipped by the wayside. On my 16th birthday, about halfway through the day, I had my favorite class, German. Best teacher ever. Her name was Frau Hartmann. She was from Germany, she spoke with a German accent. Her classes were engaging and fun, but that day I had not studied for the vocabulary quiz. So, 16-year-olds, we don't always make the best decisions, do we? Yeah, so that was the day I decided to write all the answers to the German quiz on my hand. So that when we were in the German quiz, Frau would say the words in English and we would write them in German. And so I just used my little handheld cheating to answer my questions. About halfway through the quiz, I hear, "Jessica, what are you doing?" Yeah. I looked behind me. There she was. I was busted. There was no way out of this one. And then again, the same feeling as in 5th grade. My vision narrowed, my face flushed, my brain went totally blank. Got a little sweaty, pit in my stomach, racing heart. I really couldn't tell you what happened after that. I don't remember. What I do remember was after class, Frau sat me down by myself and said, "Hey, Jessica, what happened?" I said, "You know, Frau, I hadn't studied for the test. I usually get straight A's on all of my work in German. And I knew if I took this one without cheating, I wouldn't pass. I'd get an F. You'd be disappointed in me, and I wanted to make you proud. So I cheated." And she looked at me and kind of smiled, a sweet, kind of sad smile. And she said, "Oh, Jessica," she said, "first of all, you know the rule is no cheating. So your grade for this quiz will be a 0. You're not going to fail the class, but your quiz will be 0. But something even more important I want to talk to you about. Your grade does not change my perception of you. I see you every day. You work hard, you're intelligent, you're funny, you love German, you're always raising your hand. I'm going to like you no matter what you do. You're worthy of my respect." Needless to say, I went on to become a German major in undergrad. Frau Hartmann has had such a powerful effect on me. So I've got these two situations, my 6th grade situation and my 16-year-old birthday celebration situation. Which teacher used shaming language towards me? Yeah, that was my 5th grade teacher. Your face will crack if you try to smile. Which teacher held me accountable for my actions, but also treated me with compassion and respect? My German teacher. So today, I kind of want to talk about the differences that we can make, the power that how we treat our students can be reflected and remembered in our students, and how that can affect them in their futures. So, back to Dr. Brown. Brene Brown talks about a scarcity culture. Scarcity culture means essentially not enough. Not enough time, not enough sleep, not enough energy. My English isn't good enough. I haven't prepared enough for my class. I haven't slept enough. My boss expects too much from me, and I just haven't worked hard enough today. Yeah, scarcity is not enough. And if you look at my 2 teachers, can you guess which one was in scarcity mode? Yeah. Scarcity is prevalent right now all around the world. You might be able to see it in your family, in your schools, in your cities and communities, in your governments. You only have to open the newspaper, actually, or go online to a news source to see scarcity prevalent all over the world. It's heartbreaking. But we can make a difference, because our students, no matter how old or young they are tomorrow's future. And if we teach them how to stay out of scarcity and be vulnerable, we might be able to make some changes in this world. But scarcity exists, and even I find myself susceptible to it. Just a couple days ago, as I was trying to prepare this presentation, man, I was in hardcore scarcity mode. Just like not able to think, breathe. Nothing I thought of was good enough. So, scarcity has 3 components. The first component is shame. Shame is the inherent belief that we are not worthy of love, respect, and connection. Okay? I want to clarify, this is different than guilt. Shame is the idea that I am wrong. Guilt is I did something wrong. Guilt reflects my behavior. Shame reflects who I am as a person. So if my German teacher would have said, "Jessica, you are a cheater," that's shame. But instead she said, "Jessica, you cheated, but you're still a good person." Behavior can be changed. Who we are as people cannot be changed. So it's important for us to watch our shaming talk as well. So shame manifests itself in the classroom. Oh, before I get there, shame manifests itself in women and men totally differently. We're just wired differently. So for women, we feel shame around our looks. Look perfect, do perfect, be perfect. do it all. Yeah. So my 5th grade teacher, when she said, "It looks like your face will crack," that was my appearance. Man, it hit me. Yeah. For men, don't be perceived as weak. Weakness is shame. Failure is shame. Not knowing the answer is shame. Not being smart enough, strong enough, that's shame. So, we experience it for different reasons, but it has the same effect on both men and women. And we can see it in our classrooms. Shame shows up in our classrooms. From us as teachers, we can do it without even thinking of it. Our students, sometimes they behave the same way too. Often our students behave in ways that are modeled for them by their parents or their teachers. So I want to run through some of these shame-based behaviors. I mean, I catch myself doing these in class sometimes, and then I have to go back and fix them with my students. The first one is perfectionism. I myself am a recovering perfectionist. If I can do everything right, look perfect, be perfect, act perfect, I will be worthy of other people's love and respect. That's perfectionism. And that's so toxic. Striving for excellence is totally different. Striving for excellence means I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. Striving for excellence is healthy. Perfectionism is toxic, and it's something I still struggle with. Blame. Blame is one of those things that hits me right between the eyes. It just takes me down. I'm working on getting past it. But blame is essentially when a person is feeling pain, they turn that pain outwards and aim it at someone who doesn't deserve it. It just means someone is hurting on the inside and they're not owning their own emotions. Favoritism. Man, have you ever had a teacher that had a teacher's pet? Nothing you could do would ever equal whatever that student, that favorite student did. Yeah, it hurts. It stinks. Gossiping. Gossiping is talking about people, judging them, but not talking to their face. Talking about people instead of talking to people. I can tell you which one's much harder. Talking to someone when something's not okay with you is a lot harder. Gossiping is so much easier, but toxic. When our self-worth is tied to productivity, I see so many students like this, and I was this myself. If I don't get that A, I'm not worth anything. My worth is lower. If I get that A, then I will be worthy of other people's love and respect, which is not true. Harassment and discrimination happen when people are not okay on the inside of them. Again, they're not owning their own mess, and they're taking it out on different parties who don't deserve it. Power over. This is a dangerous one. This is when you try to control other people instead of realizing that the only person that you can control is yourself. Power over is toxic, and it happens so often in schools. Bullying and teasing. Often bullies repeat behavior that's been modeled for them at home. So typically bullies have been bullied by someone, and they're just showing this power over on someone they see as weaker. It just means they're not okay. Teasing, as funny as it may be, is also hurtful and toxic. And I put cheating down here. Cheating is a form of perfectionism. Thinking that your self-worth is tied to your productivity. So if you catch students cheating, it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that they're probably striving for perfection and have totally gotten lost along the way. Now I want to talk about this second aspect of scarcity, which is comparison. Have you ever had a teacher, or maybe you've done this yourself, I don't know, after a test or a quiz or something like that, all the students' names are listed in order they got the grades, the highest grade to the lowest. Yeah. Anytime you compare, super toxic. Comparing, ranking, not good. When comparison happens, our creativity is suffocated. It's just suffocated. And comparison happens when you hold yourself and your students to really narrow standards instead of acknowledging each and every person for their uniqueness. This is where standardized testing gets really toxic. All right, and also measuring others or your own worth. Again, comparison, toxic. The last one is disengagement. When scarcity is prevalent, people are disengaged. They have fear. They're afraid to take risks, afraid to try new things. At this point, it's so much easier to stay quiet than to speak up. Have you been there before? I have. Disengagement is when you feel like no one's paying attention. That student in the back of the room who's disengaged probably needs some connection. We're disengaged when we struggle to be seen or heard. And this is what our hearts look like in scarcity culture. We armor up so much so that nobody can penetrate our heart, so that nobody can hurt us. But when this happens, we also stifle love, connection, and joy. Yeah, this armoring up, this scarcity culture is so toxic. How do we get out? How do we get out? So Brené Brown says that practicing vulnerability is the way out. So many of you might be thinking, vulnerability, that's weakness, right? Not according to Dr. Brown and her research. According to Dr. Brown, vulnerability is the courage and willingness to authentically engage in situations when the outcomes are unknown. To authentically engage. Unknown outcomes and courage. Yeah. So, vulnerability has 3 components. You gotta take a risk. There will be uncertainty. You don't know what the outcome will be. And there's emotional exposure. You've gotta tear off that armor from your heart and tell people what you're really feeling. It's not easy. So in her research, Dr. Brown discovered that vulnerability is not weakness. She came across an amazing quote. It's one of my favorites now too. It's from American President Theodore Roosevelt. He gave this speech at the Sorbonne in the early 1900s. I'm going to step out of the frame so I could read it and you can focus on the words. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do those deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails daring greatly. Daring Greatly was the title of Brené Brown's second book on vulnerability. And just as she thinks, I also agree that this quote, the man in the arena, the person who's actually standing there in the sand, in the dust, and giving it their all, they're gonna fail. They're gonna fall flat down, face down in the dust. But they pick themselves back up and they keep going. And they know they did the best they could with what they had in the moment. This is hard. This is exhausting, but it is so worth it. So vulnerability, it's not often seen in the classroom. It's hard, but I want to encourage you to try it. Vulnerability for teachers looks like this. Sharing some of our stories with our students, joking with our students, but not teasing them, not tearing them down. Allowing our students to see us as humans who do make mistakes. And when we do make those mistakes, we admit them to our students. And we show them that it's okay. And we model how to own our own mistakes, how to apologize, and how to clean up the mess from our own mistakes after they are made. How to be accountable, but not how to shame. So this is some work that I've been integrating into my own classes. And I want to share a couple different steps that you can do to try to create a more vulnerable classroom. I'm going to warn you, it's not easy. It is exhausting. And it requires you to slow down and actually feel your feelings, acknowledge them, and think about how to act. It's hard. So practicing vulnerability in the classroom. The first thing that's been the hardest for me is authenticity. For years, my armor has been my smile. I don't like to let people see when I'm upset. I keep it all inside. So in the past, I would ignore my feelings. I'd shove them down. But eventually they come bubbling back up when you least expect them. So authenticity is catching yourself in that moment and acknowledging whatever it is you're feeling. Whether it is joy, it could be love, connection. It could be pain or fear or anger. It could be any of those. But to be authentic and to know our feelings and not to pretend like we're not feeling them. So authenticity is being honest with people and telling them how we feel. You know what? This is not okay. I was hurt by what you said. Authenticity. It's been hard for me. The second thing is respect. We need to treat everyone with respect. We need to treat each and every one of our students with the same amount of respect that we treat our best friend or our parents. That respect needs to be authentic too. You can't pretend to respect your principal when your principal is yelling and screaming at you. That's fear. Respect is when you say, you know what? I am too angry right now to have this conversation with you because I'm going to say something that I regret later. That's respect. And then taking the time you need to calm down and come back to that person or people and have an open, honest discussion with them about why you were angry. In my classroom, how I model respect is I tell my students, especially regarding anger, you know what, guys? Sometimes things get moving too fast. If I ever feel that I am so angry with someone in this class or with the whole class, if I'm so angry that whatever I say will not be respectful, I'm going to leave class. I'm going to step outside. I'm going to collect myself and stay out there until I'm calm, until I can come back and speak to you and treat you with respect. And I also tell my students to do the same. If you're ever too upset in my class, you always have the option of leaving instead of being disrespectful to someone. And in fact, I encourage it. Respect in your words and in your actions. It goes a long way. After respect is curiosity. I'm going to go with the anger example. Unless you are really, really, really self-aware and good at practicing authenticity, most of the times it's never good to say anything when you're angry. So the best thing is to get out of that situation until you're calm, until you can come back to that situation or that person or people with curiosity, just like my German teacher did. Jessica, why did you cheat? Yeah. If you can come to students with curiosity and not judgment. Feeling judged is an awful feeling, and that goes back to shame. But if we're able to use curiosity in our classrooms instead of judgment, it's going to lift our students up. It's going to help them be more engaged. It's going to help them learn. And then also, compassion with boundaries. Just like my German teacher did. She was so compassionate when I cheated, but she still gave me a 0. And it's funny, the same situation happened a couple weeks ago in one of my classes. 2 students, we were taking a quiz. The rule was no talking. If you talk, I'm not going to argue with you. You're just going to see a 0 as a grade on our online course. So don't you know, 2 students talked in the quiz. And like I said, I didn't say anything to them, but I did receive 2 emails. Teacher, why did we get a 0? And I said to both students, hey, you talked during class. Please come talk to me. I'd love to understand what happened. Only one of the students came to talk to me. And he said, you know what? It's not my fault. And I said, okay, tell me what happened. Help me understand. And he said, you know what? My friend asked me the answer to a question. And I paused. And I said, hey, the teacher's looking at you. And then he looked at you. And I said, so you said don't talk, the teacher's looking at you? And the student said, yeah, that's all I did. I wasn't cheating. And I said, you know what? I believe you. I don't believe you were cheating. But I also said that the boundary, the rule is if you talk, you will get a 0. And unfortunately, you made the decision to open your mouth and to respond to the other student. So I need to hold you accountable for your actions. You did talk. You will get a 0. And just like my German teacher said to me, I said to this student, just because you got this 0 doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. Doesn't mean that you're a cheater. You are a very intelligent, hardworking student. This 0 might make your grade go down, but it's not going to make you fail the class. And I really want to advise you in the future, don't let other students influence your actions. You know what's best. Trust yourself. That was hard. It was really hard. But it also felt good. I felt like I acted with authenticity, and I really hope that that student learned a good lesson. I truly do. So authenticity, respect, curiosity, not judgment, and compassion with boundaries. If we can create classrooms like this, we can create a safe place for our students to learn that it's okay to make mistakes without being judged. They may be held accountable for their actions, but they're not going to be judged. And that we believe and we see that they are good people. So, the results of this creates connection between you and your student and between your students and your class. This creates joy. Students suddenly enjoy coming to class. You enjoy coming to class. It actually creates love. I love my students. I really do. And I hope you do too. And then comes the learning. Our students are engaged. That's what we need, right? So by modeling these behaviors, we can show our students a culture of vulnerability and abundance. I dare you to try doing this in your classes. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with a little meme from Brene Brown. Be here, be you, belong. This classroom belongs to all of us. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks to all of you who are participating in this conference. I hope you enjoy.